Good evening, and welcome to North Decatur United Methodist Church. If we haven't met before, my name is Patrick, and I'm the pastor here at this wonderful congregation. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And if you regularly tune in online, welcome. I'm so glad you are here. As is the case every Sunday and continues to be true on this midweek service, your presence is essential because we get to know God better by getting to know the people around us better, because each person bears a little spark of God's creative genius in them. And that's true of us, and it's true of the people that we interact with on a daily basis. So I am so grateful to be able to worship God alongside you today. Today is Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday is a sacred holiday in the life of the church. It's the day that begins our celebration of the season called Lent. It's a 40-day period, excluding Sundays, that slowly walks us from Ash Wednesday to Easter Sunday. Ash Wednesday is a service that reminds us of our mortality and our place in this divine, cosmic, ever-expansive story where God is continuing to reconcile all of humanity to that original blessed creation. It's a gift, both to be reminded of our small part to play in the story, as well as a gift to be reminded that we are a part of something so big, bigger than any one of us, but collective of all of us. So again, I'm grateful to worship with you today. In a typical Ash Wednesday service, we would impose ashes on one another. We would take the palms left over from last year's Palm Sunday service, and we burn them up and have a dish where we would impose ashes on each other. That's being reminded, very simply, that we were once dust, and that one day we will again become dust. Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. We're all a part of this cycle of life, death, and rebirth that happens in our lives on a daily basis, and it happens in our life and the broader scope of it. And Ash Wednesday is that reminder of that sacred reality. So, we don't have ashes today, but I do want to encourage you to be intentional about how you're sitting in this service. If you're on your bed or on a couch or whatever the case may be, totally fine. I would just encourage you to be present to your body. Be present to the aches and pains that you may feel. It's just a part of being alive. Really take an account. Start from the top of your head, working to the tips of your toes. Where do you hold stress? Where do you hold pain? Where do you hold anxiety? Does it come from a long injury? Is it something that you're only just now noticing, now that you're present to it? As you draw yourself into your body, I want to encourage you to start breathing. The deep inhale, being reminded of the gift of God's breath entering into you in a cycle that we are only occasionally mindful of. And then as you exhale, release what tension may exist. For me, it's almost always in my shoulders, in my upper back. Occasionally it's in my jaw. As you breathe deep, be reminded of God's sacred breath filling your lungs, giving you life for the next few moments. And as you exhale, allow that breath to bring a small bit of healing to that stress, that anxiety, that pain that you carry. As you breathe in, be reminded of God's grace. And as you exhale, begin to open to the presence of God in this space and in this time. As we do that, I'm going to light the candle in front of me, and if you have a candle, I'd encourage you to light it as well as a reminder to return to our bodies and return to our breath as we turn our hearts and minds to the worship of God. We'll do that together by breathing. The way that breath will look is by singing. And so I invite you to take that deep breath in and join me in singing songs of praise to our God. Let us sing.
Change my heart, oh God, make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God, may I be like you. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me, this is what I pray. Change my heart, oh God, make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God, may I be like you. You are the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me, this is what I pray. Change my heart, oh God, make it ever true. Change my heart, oh God, may I be like you. May I be like you.
Sometimes only song can speak to the depths of our hearts. The Psalms are ancient songs, sung to stringed instruments. These songs are our songs. In the laments, we sense a pain, an ache that calls out to all. Deep cries to deep in a dark and familiar place that few of us care to linger. A place of loneliness and sorrow and emptiness, without geography or landscape. A place tuned to a minor key, tone dark and somber, dissonance, spaces between beats, measures strung out, notes hang their head. David dwelt here, accompanied only by guilt, his hands stained in blood and treachery. He reached for what was not his to take, like Adam taking from the fruit, tasting the sweetness of knowing good and evil, tasting the bitterness of lost innocence. And he saw his nakedness. Lovers who are now ashamed to see each other as they truly are. And Adam came to realize that he was only man made from dust. And David came to know that he was only shepherd boy made king. They are made creatures. Adam from Adama, humans from dust, to have a breath of life poured into this fragile container. But there is one who knew the frailty of existence like none other. The one who was God in flesh and bones. There was no place he could retreat when pain pursued. He could no longer be anywhere or do anything. Now he was one of us, touching what we touch and feeling what we feel, being nowhere else but with us. Emmanuel. Last Thursday, the dead palms in our front yard were taken down. They died in the summer drought. What were once tall and noble were now shedding their dead palm branches and were easily fell. I picked up their leaves to make ashes and placed them on top of a brass bowl and lit them, a pyre for the remnants of psalms. And looking into those flames that embrace the leaves, I see myself getting older and envying youth. And as each year slips my grasp, I ask myself, what have I done in this world? What difference have I made? Tracing the boundaries of my soul, a black silhouette that looks back at me. And I slowly realize that my existence and my being, this very breath, is held together by hands and heart greater than what I can understand or imagine or hope for. And like David, I wait for deliverance, a longing for heaven. And like Adam, I wait for another chance to take a stroll with God through the garden, the breaking dawn of a new day.
So Ash Wednesday is the first day in the season of Lent, which is the 40 days between Ash Wednesday and Easter Sunday, if you don't count Sundays. So those 40 days give us a great opportunity to take on some new perspective, to learn to live into our identity as people of faith, and in so doing, maybe take on a new habit. For a lot of us, the season of Lent comes with something to give up or something to take on. And for me, I remember growing up, a lot of that felt sort of, it wasn't necessarily about connecting with God. It was really about just taking on a new habit that we've been wanting to do for a long time, or getting rid of an old habit that we were uncomfortable with having, right? Or maybe even just trying to pump the brakes on doing something that we really love, but maybe are too attached to. So I've known lots of folks who give up caffeine or give up alcohol, or maybe decide to give up carbs, or maybe take on a new habit of running or reading regularly each day, or maybe watching less television or something like that. Which is great. Those are wonderful habits. Those are really good things to practice. It's certainly a good thing to learn how to abstain from chemicals that might shape both our bodies and our minds in ways that we don't want them to be shaped. But the season of Lent isn't just about learning a new diet or being better read or learning how to turn our tech off. Those are all good things, and they're definitely habits to take on during the season of Lent, but the intention shouldn't be to just become less dependent on technology. The intent of Lent isn't just about either giving something up or taking something on. It's about relearning our identity. Right? That's why Ash Wednesday is so important. Ash Wednesday is the reminder that we will all inevitably die. It's a bleak reality, but it's an honest reality that none of us will live forever in the ways that we are living right now. The bodies that we now inhabit will begin to deteriorate, and that comes with its own pain. And as our bodies deteriorate, we will be even more mindful of them because we will feel them more and more each day. It's just a reality. And because that reality is a cyclical one, we know that it's true for everyone, right? The old cliched joke, right? There's only two certainties in life, death and taxes. And that's true. That's why on Ash Wednesday we typically impose ashes. We make the sign of the cross and ashes on each of our foreheads as that reminder. You were once dust and you will just be dust again. But in that interim period, we have a really meaningful, yet too short opportunity to live our lives to the fullest. And when I say living our lives to the fullest, I mean living with intentional connection to God who created us, the creation that God created, and the people that God put us in community with. That's what Ash Wednesday is supposed to be about. It's that reminder that might jolt us into waking up to the present moment. You will die. Be present now. And for many of us, we need to take on a new habit in order to be fully present, right? For some of us, it means letting go of a bad habit so that we can be fully present. But the work of Ash Wednesday and the season of Lent is to learn how to be fully present in our bodies, in this moment, with the people around us, so that we can worship God on a regular basis together. So that frames the kind of habits we might take on, right? There's some really great literature about this, both in a book called The Power of Habit and in a book called Atomic Habits. And in both of them, they talk about how habits don't happen by accident. Habits have to be formed intentionally. And in order to form them intentionally, they have to be rooted in some sense of identity. This is particularly written about in that book, Atomic Habits. And what he says in there is that, like, we have this, if rather than trying to build a habit of running every day, even if you build systems of rewards and punishments around developing that habit, the only way for you to really take that on as a regular commitment to running is to start thinking of yourself as a runner, even if you don't run right now. So when you wake up, when you are just getting out of bed, and you start to wrap your identity around the idea of being a runner, even if you only have 5 minutes, you're going to go do that run, because that's what a runner would do with their free time. And so the season of Lent is our opportunity to reconnect with our sacred identity as beloved children of God, as disciples of Christ, as followers of Jesus. So if we were to claim that identity, what would the habits be that we might take on, right? That's the project of Lent. And that might look like running. Maybe we need to be more embodied, take the bodies that we have, maybe taken advantage of and not necessarily used to their fullest potential. And maybe we've even treated our bodies poorly. Maybe that means taking on running. Or maybe it means you've been running too much and you need to be able to take rest and Sabbath. Right? I know plenty of people who are watching now who likely have gotten stress fractures from trying to do too much too often. So maybe your body is telling you to pause. Maybe you've spent so much time thinking about your body in such negative ways that the project is just to learn how to love your body as it is without trying to fix it. That's its own work. Maybe your identity, you don't need to think about your body. You have a good relationship with your body. That's great. If you were going to take on the identity of a follower of Jesus, what might be a habit to be instilled in your life? Or what habit might you need to let go of so that you can follow? What gets in your way of loving God and loving your neighbor? There's a passage in the Gospel of Matthew that helps me sort of wrap my head around, like, what we're doing here, and it's actually the passage that's usually read in churches on Ash Wednesday. It's Matthew chapter 6. We'll start at the 5th verse. When you pray, don't be like the hypocrites. They love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners so that people will see them. I assure you that's the only reward that they'll get. But when you pray, go to your room, shut your door, and pray to your Father who is present in a secret place. Your Father who sees what you do in secret will reward you. And then skipping to verse 16. And when you fast, don't put on a sad face like the hypocrites. They distort their faces so people will know that they're fasting. I assure you that they have their reward. When you fast, brush your hair, wash your face. Then you won't look like you're fasting to people, but only to your Father who is present in that secret place. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. There's a temptation, I think, to make Lent, or really any habit formation, a chance to I don't want to say boast, that's too heavy of a word, but to make so much of a big deal about doing it that it might detract from the actual work. And I know I've gotten caught up in this. I remember, I keep using running as my example because that is the habit that I wish that I was doing more of. And so every time I start running, I tell everybody about it. And then I start talking about running more than I'm actually running. And then I start feeling shame about the fact that I'm talking about running more than I'm actually making the time to go for a run. And then that keeps me from running because I'm thinking about it, and it's rather than actually doing it. And then that makes me go into a different kind of shame spiral. And then it just sort of gets all out of sorts and it becomes incredibly unhelpful. And then I just sort of let it go. Right? There's something about that propensity, maybe it's just me and it's not you, but of talking about something, making a show of the work that we're doing that detracts from the actual work that we're intending to do. So I'd encourage you to you don't need to hold secret what your habit is. For example, I actually need accountability. It's the way that I actually follow through on new habits. I tell important people in my life that I'm trying to do something new, and they'll ask me about it and push me towards it sometimes. And they won't let me just talk about it. In fact, my wife is very good at interrupting me and saying, well, are you going to go work out or no? And I need that. It's actually very, very helpful for me. So I'll let you know what I'm doing for Lent, and I'd actually invite you to join me in it if you don't already have a plan. If you do have a plan, I would love it if you'd put it in the chat right now. What are you either giving up or taking on for Lent to draw you into better relationship with God and or your community? I'd love to know what you're taking on. For me, I am taking on a habit of regular prayer. My prayer life has been a little bit more sporadic than I want it to be. It's not been as consistent as I would like, and that lack of consistency has made me feel a little bit further from God than I would like to feel. So I'm doing what I can to take on a new habit of praying, both in the morning and in the evening. And the way that I'm holding myself accountable is first I just told all of you, but I'm also opening up a Zoom call that I anticipate I'll probably be on by myself a lot, which is great. That's totally fine. But if you're looking for a way to instill this habit of prayer in your own life, I'd love for you to join me. I'll just be turning on Zoom at 7 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock at night. You can find that Zoom link on our church calendar, but I'll be there morning and evening every day, starting, actually not starting tomorrow, starting on Monday. That Zoom call will be opening up. The only reason it's not up now is because I'm traveling, so I'm sorry for that. But I'd love for you to join me there. It'll be a simple time, mostly of silence. You wouldn't need to turn a video on or anything. I may or may not, depending on how well I slept the night before. But it'll just be a space for us to be in prayer together. Because I need that accountability. And if you need that accountability, welcome to the club. If you need an accountability partner, let me know. I'll be happy to send you a note, give you a call, send you an email, whatever is helpful for you to stay on the good and sacred path of getting to know your neighbors and falling deeper and deeper in love with our God, our Creator. Yeah. Having said all of that, I again just want to draw you back into your body. What do you need to feel more present, more connected with God, more connected with the earth that exists around you, more connected with your breath, more connected with your neighbors, more connected with your community? Those are a lot of big questions. But the first step towards connecting with any of those things is to be connected with that breath. So I'd remind you to return to it. If you have a candle in front of you, let that be a reminder as we once again go to God with song. Let us sing.
Trust in Jesus, I've learned and trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon God's word. Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Oh, through it all, I've learned to depend upon God's word. Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus. I've learned to trust in God. Oh, through it all, I've learned to depend upon God's word.
Once again, I want to thank you for joining us for this Ash Wednesday service. If you have ashes, even if they're from a fireplace, you're welcome to impose them on yourself. That's not something that needs to come from someone else. It's a sacred reminder to each and every one of us that we are not God, but we can trust in God. That our little spot on this long line of human history is meaningful, essential. That the life that you are living has been dreamt of by your ancestors, and the life that those who come after you or might be living will be the fulfillment of our dreams. All along this path where God is redeeming all of creation and all of humanity. Ash Wednesday is our reminder of our mortality, because we trust in the long story of resurrection being told from generation to generation. And I'm so grateful to celebrate that with you. You are dust, and to dust you will return. Thanks be to God. Amen.